Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop, Starting and Building a Business While Homeschooling. My name is Dr. Khadijah Ali-Coleman. I am a former homeschooling mother, a professor, and an entrepreneur with years of experience running multiple business ventures while homeschooling my daughter and before homeschooling her and since. So let me start by sharing a bit about my journey. I homeschooled my daughter off and on throughout grades P through 12, and she graduated from our homeschool in 2021 with an associate degree earned while also enrolled in community college. She graduated from the University of San Francisco last summer. She is actually the Programs and Operations Coordinator for Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars. I am the founding director. I welcome you to our fifth annual Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars Teach-In. While homeschooling my daughter, I supplemented my part time work as an adjunct professor with several business enterprises, which I will discuss as we move through this workshop. Today, I'll share strategies and resources to help you understand the differences between certain types of businesses. I had intended on teaching on how to balance entrepreneurship with homeschooling, but I realized that it's really hard to jump into understanding how to start a business if you don't really have an understanding about what business options are, what business is. So by the end of this session, I hope you understand some key business terms, types of business structures, the broader benefits of running a business beyond just generating income. Um, so yeah, so let me just say it's a lot that I'll be going over. I am going to put some handouts, um, like vocabulary and things that I mentioned throughout this presentation in the chat, the message board that is part of this teaching. However, I do encourage you to take notes. Just as an educator, I think that it will help you to write down things that resonate. Also, when it comes to any questions that you may have that you want to bring to the message board for me, that you will have written down what your question is. You write down your question, it may be answered in the course of the workshop. So, yeah, I am a proponent of notes. I believe that they are helpful, regardless of what you're learning, your if you're more of an oral or visual learner, I think note taking is helpful across the board. So before we dive in, I want to just do a quick interactive exercise. Um, so I want to know how many people have come to this workshop already knowledgeable of the following terms. And when I mention a term, I would like for you to put in the chat the term that is familiar to you. So I'm going to be talking about terms such as LLC, 501c3, sole proprietorship, contractor, consultant, 1099 form, royalties, and brands. So, any of those words that sounded familiar, type in the chat. I just want to get a sense, and I want you to be able to see the different things that people already know coming into it. Um, and if you don't, if none of that sounds familiar, then that's great because you'll be learning, you'll be taking away something new from this workshop. If any of those things are familiar, hopefully, I will share a little bit more than what you already know about those terms. Um, so I want us to just take a step back first and look at the historical context of business. Um, I'm a professor, so I always like to approach from a historical perspective first. So I just want to share. Did you know that the earliest business system documented in history was the barter system? So before we even are imagining using currency like money, um, and even before money, dollars and coins, cowrie shells, before this idea of currency, business was really documented as being a barter system. So people traded goods and services directly without money. Um, they used trade routes. I don't know if you're familiar with the term the Silk Road. This was this ancient civilization um, trail of travel for merchants called the Silk Road. It connected regions spreading throughout northern Africa into Europe and Asia. And with this travel to sell and to barter, um, was also how religion traveled and how culture and ideas traveled, because there was no telephone, there was no internet, there was no television. In Africa, trade across the Sahara dates back thousands of years. So goods like salt, ivory, animal skins, spices, all that were traded for manufactured items like pottery and metalwork. So we fast forward to today. Technology has revolutionized trade, making it easier to connect with customers globally without leaving your home. A huge advantage for homeschooling parents like us. So, I went from ancient civilization to now, right? And what was in between? Well, of course, we know that once we did have technology such as the telephone or the computer or the television or different modes of travel like the airplane, the car, the train, the boat, that our idea of travel and business were interconnected. So now with technology as it exists today, the possibilities are endless. And understanding this context shows that the fundamental idea of business really hasn't changed, but the channels of business have definitely expanded. And even as recently as 10 years ago, we didn't see the integration of online businesses within the fabric of possibilities as we do now. So business opportunities are rapidly expanding as we speak. And so you need to keep this in mind as you think about your own business goals. So one of the things I do want to distinguish before I even go any further within this talk is the difference between a pyramid scheme and a legitimate business. So I will not be promoting a pyramid scheme in this workshop. A pyramid scheme prioritizes recruitment and money flow from new participants, often at the expense of later recruits, while a legitimate business focuses on creating value through products and services that meet market demands. And some of the differences, I can go over what some of the differences are between a pyramid scheme and a legitimate business. So I think in the homeschooling community, I've already seen, and what really urged me to present this presentation, because we had a presenter who earlier was going to present, and she had it was a conflict. But I really wanted to make sure that this presentation existed, even if it was going to be me to present it, because as long as I've been in the homeschooling community, this ecosystem, I've definitely seen a change since the pandemic. And I will say honestly that I'm appalled and alarmed with what I'm seeing happening in the ecosystem regarding these businesses that are really, in a sense, preying on homeschooling parents who are really desperate to find means to support their families and work, particularly as transitioning into this new cultural practice, which is homeschooling. And so you're seeing a lot of pyramid schemes crop up. What is a pyramid scheme? Well, if the revenue is primarily comes from you having to recruit new participants rather than selling a legitimate product or service, if your participants have to pay an upfront fee or make a purchase to join with the promise of earning money by recruiting others, and I'm not talking about paying money for product that they're going to sell, but just product to be a part of it. This model is unsustainable because it depends on an endless supply of new recruits, which eventually runs out. A legitimate business has revenue that is generated from the sale of goods or service to customers. The business model focuses on providing value through products or services, not on recruiting people. And it's sustainable because its income depends on market demand and customer satisfaction. So you may have a legitimate business that may have like affiliate links or things like that, but and an affiliate link for those who aren't clear on what I'm talking about. Um, an affiliate link is, let's say that you have a workshop that you're offering, and you are offering um, folks, if they are spreading the word about your workshop, they have a link that they can promote, and whoever uses their link, they get money from the sale of tickets to your workshop. Many people do that. That's a marketing tactic. But your workshop is going to happen whether or not you have people promoting and using the affiliate links. So it is not a pyramid scheme because you're not only making money from um, having to recruit folks to help you sell, right? A pyramid scheme compromises the purpose and the value of your work because it exists primarily to transfer money from new recruits, to the scheme's organizers and the early participant. A pyramid scheme offers little to no genuine value in the form of products or services. Often the products offered are often overpriced or of poor quality, serving only as a cover for the recruitment-based model. A legitimate business provides goods or services that meet a customer need or solve a problem. They offer tangible value with customer service, and repeat business are the key drivers of what is success. A pyramid scheme, again, heavily emphasizes recruitment, often with aggressive tactics. Participants are incentivized to recruit others and may be penalized if they fail to do so. And the scheme collapses once recruitment slows down. Um, in a legitimate business, recruitment is secondary or unrelated to the core business. I will actually use as an example Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars LLC. This teach-in is presented by Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars LLC, BFHES, which I am the owner of, and which I've been the owner of, and since 2020. And for our speakers and our presenters, we offer affiliate links for them to use if they are promoting that they're going to be presenting at this conference. Um, I would say less than 10% of the presenters are actively promoting in a way that is um, leading participants our way. I can say that wholeheartedly because I look at the reports, but it's something that I offer because I look at this work really as a co-op of sorts. But it's going to happen. The teaching is going to happen. It's not reliant on our speakers to bring in money or to pay to speak, which is ridiculous to me. Um, but I do have sponsorships. I do allow people who want to connect with our audience to sponsor this event, which allows us to then offer free tickets to the community and to also pay for many of the things that need to go into the operation of our teaching and other programs that we have throughout the year. So I did want to just make that distinction between a pyramid scheme and a legitimate business. Um, Pyramid schemes are illegal in most countries, including the United States, because it's considered a form of fraud, often disguised as a legitimate business to evade detection, such as by offering low value products. But I've mentioned already what it really is about is having recruits and making money off of recruits. A red flag that you can be on the lookout for a pyramid scheme: if there's high pressure tactics to join or recruit others, a lack of emphasis on a product or service quality or sales, claims of guaranteed or extraordinary profits, limited or no refunds for upfront costs, and most participants lose money or barely break even. You'll see a lot of these folks showing up in, if you're part of like a Facebook homeschool group where it says, I have a great work for home opportunity, post I'm in if you want more information. And it's just very, um, little information that's shared up front. There's no website that the person is offering you to learn more about this so-called opportunity. These are the types of red flags when you were talking about a a pyramid scheme. Um, and there are many types of legitimate businesses that you can create with going the pyramid scheme route. So I'm going to give you 20 ideas just off the bat. Um, Before talking a bit about my own business, so that you can understand that you can create a business that doesn't have to be a pyramid scheme, that doesn't have to rely on you to respond to these things that you're seeing in these homeschooling groups. What's happening, and I was this, I want to say, I homeschooled my daughter off and on for 13 years throughout her P through 12 experience. I began homeschooling before COVID-19. So when folks really thought that it was just white, evangelical, rich families that were homeschooling, you really didn't hear about black families homeschooling. It definitely was not an online presence as what exists now. What happened once COVID-19 came, you had a lot of teachers leaving schools, folks looking at, oh, okay, all these people are trying to homeschool, they don't know what to do, so I'm going to present myself as someone who can school their children in their stead. So, really beginning to even disrupt this culture of homeschooling by calling it something different. And so, in the midst of that, you had a lot of pyramid schemes coming, and tricking many parents to believe that these are communities, but it's this idea of being a recruit and making more money for the person who has recruited you. So here are some service-based businesses that you can create a legitimate business. You can freelance. You can offer services like writing, graphic design, social media management, or web development on platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, or LinkedIn. Um, I use Fiverr often. I offer coaching to authors, but I also self-publish my own books. I hire editors and format people who format books through Fiverr regularly. Another service-based business is that you can tutor or teach. We've seen this providing academic tutoring, homeschooling support, or skill-based lessons, for example, music, art, or coding, online or locally. I think that you have seen many of these examples in our community. You are maybe someone who does this, who offers this as well. You can also have a service-based business around consulting, so using your expertise in a specific field. Again, we are seeing homeschool consultants pop up, but you can also, especially if you're thinking about having a business in tandem with your 9 to 5, or to replace your 9 to 5, think about what it is that you do at your 9 to 5 job and how you can transition that into a consulting role. So, using your expertise in a specific field to advise individuals or small businesses. Um, I had a consultant business for a number of years, while I homeschooled, before I started homeschooling, and often in tandem with my 9 to 5, and when I didn't have a 9 to 5. Another service-based business is virtual assistant. You offer administrative, scheduling, or customer service support remotely to business or entrepreneurs. Many people confuse a consultant and then this type of work, which is service. Um, Consultancy usually, that advising of individuals or small businesses, is usually project based, but it is not as deadline driven as work such as a virtual assistant. So I distinguish between the two of them because you really have to assess what your capacity is, particularly if you're trying to do these jobs and have these businesses while with your children, you got to think about what your capacity is when it comes to doing deadline driven work. And serving as someone's virtual assistant really requires you to be available to them as necessary, or at least set strict boundaries that where you are available to be that virtual assistant, but then these are the times of the day or the days where you are unavailable because you're homeschooling your children. Um, a fitness trainer or coach is another service based business. Of course, pet services, providing dog walking, pet sitting, or grooming services in your community, cleaning services, event planning, coordinating and planning events, weddings or parties. Um, then you have digital businesses, so such as creation. Everyone's a content creator nowadays, right? But if you're really consistent, you can consider starting a YouTube channel, podcast, or blog. I will say that this is actually something where it will definitely take time. It's not something you can just jump into and expect to start making money. You really have to build your audience. You really have to be engaged with social media in a way where you're understanding what the trends are and the best practices to be successful. But that is a digital business, as is, of course, social media management. Very similar to the virtual assistant business. You could contract yourself out to manage social media for businesses. I've done that as well. Affiliate marketing, which I mentioned before, in a very small idea, but there's some people who that is their business, is that they're promoting products or services online and earning commission for each sale through affiliate links. There's certain companies that actually have you sign up, and you can they kind of get a sense of what your presence is on the internet and determine that yes, they will allow you to be an affiliate to get commission selling products. Amazon has a affiliate marketing program, um, but that's a way to make money. Online courses or ebooks. I think that is probably what people are most familiar with. What I will say with digital businesses is that for each of the businesses that I just mentioned, content creation, social media management, affiliate marketing, online courses or ebooks, these are really successful when you build an audience or have an audience to purchase and to be interested in what it is that you come up with, or you are offering something that is so valuable and trending so heavily that if you are paying to advertise these services or these businesses, that people are going to scoop them up because it's in demand. Um, and so I want folks to know that with these businesses, it may be very easy to set up, but for them to actually be um, income generating, it may require a lot of time on the front end before you even get started with generating income. Um, and then you have product based businesses, print on demand, so designing t shirts, mugs, or other products and selling them through platforms like Printful or Teespring. Drop shipping. I actually use Bonfire as a print on demand business. I have linked bonfire accounts to my 501c nonprofit. Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars has a bonfire site, and I've set them up for nonprofits, and I actually plan on setting up another bonfire account for my performance arts group's Liberated Muse. But Bonfire is an example of a print on demand storefront where you really are just designing the graphics, and then you're directing people to that site and they purchase your the products that you design, but you don't have to pay for the shirts. You're not making them, you're not mailing them. The income that's generated is very small compared to what you would probably bring in if you were doing the actual printing and the shipping. But you have to take into consideration that those would also be expenses. So if you, even though you would be making more money, you also would have greater expenses. And so print on demand is an example for me of stagnant income, not stagnant, but income where you have this set up and it generates income as people come across it, but it's not something that you necessarily have to actively be marketing, but it's a business because it's generating income. Other low cost businesses could be anything from errand running or delivery services as an individual or through companies such as Instacart, Uber Eats, photography using your smartphone or a basic camera to offer photography services for events or portraits. I used to do that for photography and film, flipping items, so finding free or low cost items on platforms like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, or thrift stores and reselling them for profit, gardening or yard services, and then childcare or babysitting. So those are some ideas that I'm throwing out there because I want us to really understand what the possibilities are for business. We don't always have to go really big and think, oh, I'm gonna start an IT company and I need to get certified in XYZ. You really can start with smaller businesses that you already have a skill set in, and work from there. My first business in my life was a babysitting business when I was a teen. I also sold candy as a sole proprietorship, but then led fundraising teams as part of different clubs I was part of when I was in high school. Um, I was that kid selling those blow pops and M&Ms. After graduating college, I started a karaoke business called RJ Karaoke, which was a cool side business that allowed me to hire men to help me lift and carry the equipment. And I stress men because what happened was that a lot of people thought that the men I hired were the company owner because of the name of the company, which was RJ Karaoke. And it stood for Real Jams. Yes, corny, but it sounding like a masculine name. Folks often assumed when we would show up for the gig that these men that I had hired to carry the equipment for me were actually the company owner. And even when I was communicating with them through email or on the telephone to set up, they assumed that I was like the assistant of RJ. And that was just really interesting. And that was fine for me as I was learning how sexist business can be in general for female entrepreneurs. And I'm not going to get too far into that, but those are some of the things that you should consider. Knowing this culture, this social environment, what naming does and how it impacts attracting clients and working with clients. In 2006, 3 years after having my daughter, I started a consulting company called So Our Youth Aspire LLC to offer consulting services to nonprofits. And I was writing professionally as a freelance journalist. And so, again, these businesses were in tandem with holding full time jobs until 2008 when I started Liberated Muse Arts as it was just called Liberated Muse. It was an online digital community, very similar to like MySpace. Um, and so I lost my job 9 months after starting Liberated Muse, and I had a boss at my 9 to 5. Um, I'm just telling the backstory, which it was a lot of reasons that led to me losing that job. But one of the things that I noticed was that she was just incredibly jealous about the work I was doing with Liberated Muse. I wasn't savvy enough then to know that your 9 to 5 is not a safe space to mention the work that you do outside of work unless it is a volunteer or some sort of charity or church work. So at this job, my boss was privy to my work with Liberated Muse because a lot of people who had applied for contracts, I worked for a an organization that managed out of school time in Washington D.C. And so we would put calls out for contractors, for people who did things with children, for after school programs, everything from boxing to writing and African drumming, all these things. So they had their individual businesses and they wanted a contract through our organization to be able to be paid to offer their services to children and after school as an after school program. And so I promoted this through my digital site, Liberated Muse, while I was working in this job. And so a lot of people applied and were hired. And she had, it was a intake form that asked, "How did you find out about this?" opportunity. And it was like I found out through Liberated Muse and Khadijah. And so this just infuriated her. Like you could see it in her face in our meetings. While my um, peers were like, "Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome." She was just like fuming. So when I lost the 9 to 5, I dove into really building this baby business and began this baby business Liberated Muse, and I began working my other side businesses for my main income. So I made money consulting for nonprofits. I was writing for a few newspapers, and I was producing community events through Liberated Muse, particularly the Capital Hip Hop Soul Fest, which we produced for 3 summers. My biggest contract going into 2009 was a $10,000 contract doing marketing for a nonprofit that wanted to connect with diverse communities. So I was homeschooling my daughter for part of 2009 because her preschool, this private school, had this big time drama with the pastor running off with the money and the church having to shut down, a whole bunch of foolishness. So here I was with time to engage with her through homeschooling, museum trips, um, visits to the zoo, whatever. She was about 5 years old then. And I had these contracts where I was taking her with me as well. So she went back to traditional school from 6 to 9 years old. And then I began homeschooling her again for fifth to sixth grade, where by then I was teaching as a college adjunct. Um, I was still an adjunct is just someone who is not a is not full time faculty at a college or university, and we don't get benefits either. I'm currently an assistant professor at Coppin State University, where I am, an employee of the state now, but at the time, as an adjunct, and just so you know, more than 70% of teaching faculty at colleges and universities in the United States are adjuncts, and so it's a whole nother workshop. But I was still, at the time, I was still freelance writing and contracting at this point. And so I was also touring performances with Liberated Muse, where I had moved from producing events and producing my plays and stage productions. So I also was making most of my money as a creativity coach, helping authors publish their work by working as an editor, helping them flesh out chapters, and just general navigation of the self-publishing landscape, which is something for you to consider as a business opportunity. So my daughter returned to traditional school for seventh and eighth grade, and then I homeschooled her for high school where I was still coaching writers. I was in a doctoral program at this point now, so I was earning money through performances, writing gigs, consultations, and different contracts. So if I'm doing all these different things, what exactly was the business, right? So there are many ways to structure your business. So we can break down what those key types are. This might be a note taking moment, but I also will be providing a breakdown for you in the message boards. So there are some key types of business structures. There's the sole proprietorship, where you're the sole owner and the operator of your business. They're simple to start, but they come with personal liability. An LLC, limited liability company, offers flexibility and protects your personal assets. So you can have an LLC and still be a single member owner, but you are no longer sole proprietor, which means that what this particular business, like if there's any problem where your client feels the need to sue you, um, or file something, it's not against you as an individual, it's against your company. And that's the difference between folks having an LLC and then just doing business under their government name, okay? Then you have a 501c3 nonprofit. And this is for those who are driven by a mission to serve, or really just want to have a tax exempt organization where you are serving. You're not in business for profit, but for service, and you can still pay yourself within a nonprofit. But there's no any revenue generated by a nonprofit goes back into the nonprofit. So where you have with companies, you may get a surplus of revenue, and then you can give yourself a bonus or your employees a bonus. Um, and you just are, that extra money is yours. With a nonprofit, it has to go back into the nonprofit in some capacity. Um, And then as a contractor or consultant, I'm separating this from sole proprietorship, but it's really kind of the same thing. Um, a contractor or a consultant, if you're a service provider and you're operating independently and you're filing 1099 forms, um, you are a sole proprietor, but you also can be a contractor or consultant through your LLC. And still receiving a 1099. And so I have a form to go over those, but I want you to be aware of those terms. And if what I'm sharing with you is not sufficient, you at least are hearing these terms so that you can do a deeper dive on your own time. So in my journey, I've worked as a sole proprietor, running businesses. I've also, I currently have a 501c3 nonprofit called Black Writers for Peace and Social Justice. Um, and each structure offers unique advantages. Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars, LLC, is a limited liability corporation. And so let's talk about benefits. So, a sole proprietorship is the simplest and most common type of business structure. It is owned and operated by one individual with no legal distinction between the owner and the business. Um, business income is reported on the owner's personal income tax, avoiding the double taxation that corporations face. Sole proprietors can claim deductions for expenses such as home office costs, equipment, mileage, and supplies. Um, you have unlimited personal liability, however. So you are personally liable for all the business debts and the legal obligations. If the business cannot pay its debts, they can pursue to sue you, the individual. Um, this is goes that whole thing where they say corporations are people, and so people usually are creating a corporation, an LLC, or even an S corp, which I'm not talking about in this in this talk. This is too much. It's because of this idea of liability. Any lawsuits or legal claims against the business are directly tied to you as the owner, plain and simple. While sole proprietorships are an excellent choice for small scale operations, freelancers, or those starting with minimal resources, they are best suited for businesses with low liability risk and modest growth plans. So, as your business expands, transitioning, to a more formal structure may help mitigate these disadvantages. I definitely wanted Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars to be an LLC, knowing we saw very early on that we were serving thousands of people. Like there were hundreds who came to our first teaching, but then looking at those who subsequently were receiving our content through YouTube, coming to workshops and tea talks and things that we were offering, an LLC, and then going into publishing and having books, an LLC made the best sense. Um, I did my work as a creativity coach as a sole proprietor because of the low risk and the ability to write off a lot of the expenses for my personal taxes, particularly the expenses I had for driving to meet clients. Because remember, this was before Zoom and online consultations being more normative. So my clients wanted me to be in the same space with them a lot of times, and we did a lot of phone consultations. So I could therefore write off mileage, phone expenses, computer purchases, and all of those things. I made a distinction between my work as a creativity coach and the work I do in educational spaces and as a consultant for companies and individuals, though later, such as what I just said about BFHES, as well as So Our Youth Aspire, which was a consultancy that I had in the early 2000s when I was consulting through that brand and doing work with nonprofits and folks who wanted to hire me to come and do trainings and speak public speaking, Lord. So while you cannot be a sole proprietor or have a sole proprietorship in an LLC simultaneously, a single member LLC offers the middle ground, allowing you to retain the simplicity of a sole proprietorship while gaining the benefits of liability protection and enhanced credibility. A single business cannot be both a sole proprietorship and an LLC. However, you can transition from a sole proprietorship to an LLC, or you can operate a single member LLC, which combines elements of both. And you can also have several businesses at once that may have different distinctions. Um, So I did want to um, talk about that. Sole proprietorships and LLCs. Also, with 501c3 nonprofit, they usually operate to serve a charitable, educational, religious, scientific, or similar public purpose. Profits, as I said before, are reinvested into the organization's mission rather than distributed to staff, faculty, the owners, or members. But here's the thing. Um, 501c3 nonprofits also allow you for more funding opportunities. 501c3 nonprofits are primarily funded through grants, donations, sponsorships, and fundraising. Um, and so you may have to generate and get this by agreeing to do mission related activities. But, I have been deeply thinking about transitioning BFHES into a nonprofit so that I can offer more things for free. And I may. But right now, because a nonprofit requires a board and a level of direction from this other group of people, which can be really bogged down. Progress. I've stepped away from that idea, but it is something that I'm moving toward as I am seeing that there are more grants and funding opportunities where I don't have to do as much upfront marketing and things like that to promote the offerings for my company. 501c3 nonprofit is fundamentally different from a sole proprietorship or an LLC because its purpose is mission driven, not profit driven. It enjoys a tax exempt status and relies heavily on donations and grants. So, if your goal is personal income or profit generation, a sole proprietorship or an LLC may be more appropriate. However, if your goal is to address a societal issue or provide public benefit, a nonprofit structure might be the better choice. You can, if you have a nonprofit, you can pay for yourself as a staff person of that nonprofit. So, just in general, I want to talk about the broader landscape for Black women entrepreneurs in business. Just so you know, 2.1 million between 2019 and 2023 generated 2.1 million business owners between 2019 and 2023. Take two. Businesses were run by Black women, generating $98.3 billion in revenue. The challenges that remain are funding. Black women typically have limited access to capital. 61% of Black women self fund their startups. I'm one of those. And the sectors that we usually are part of are usually the least funded. And so we're talking about retail, health, education, social services. And so those are things to think about and to consider when you're thinking about the structure, and why I wanted to talk about 501c3 nonprofits, because as you are homeschooling, if you're able to apply for grants and you don't necessarily have the time to devote to marketing and those things that really, we're in a we're in a saturated market of businesses where everyone is trying to sell something, trying to promote something. So if you have this service, you want to offer it for free, but you still want to be able to have some income coming in. A 501c3 may be the choice. Many people are converting their homeschool co-ops and collectives into nonprofits so that they can apply for grants to be able to offer free services to the communities they serve, but also to pay some of the contractors that work with the co-op, and that includes the parents who are teaching. And so that's a really creative way to proceed that in that route. Balancing a homeschool practice and your business can be a tricky thing. It requires flexibility and creativity. You need to use your business activities or you not you need to, but you can use your business activities as educational opportunities for your children, teaching them skills like budgeting, marketing, and time management, or even apprenticeships of sorts. For instance, my arts company, Liberated Muse. So it started as a digital platform and moved into a production company of my plays where I was touring, and not just plays and music. Sometimes we were producing books as well for a period of time, the early 2000s. But my daughter was there. My daughter was 4 when I started Liberated Muse, and so Liberated Muse is like her sister. She's 21 now, and so she's done everything um, from being a technical manager, um, a stage manager for us, doing sound, doing stage management, helping with marketing, selling tickets, selling merch, everything, you name it. She has done it from when she was 5 years old to 21. You can also look at your business as something that only exists when as you have capacity. So you have to determine how much time and energy you can dedicate to your business, and involving your children and your partner in your business really helps to leverage the support that you would um, possibly ask other people, finding those ways that your partner and your children can really help with business activities. For example, when I homeschooled, my I think consistently my partner will tell you that I'm always asking for something. He's illustrated my book. Um, and that's something that I didn't talk about as well when we're talking about royalties or generating revenue. Um, I did mention that I self-published, but I have a couple of books out, and that money is not as frequent as consulting or the big amounts that I'll get like with a contract or with a project, but it's still revenue that's generating. And my partner has been invaluable when it comes to my books, particularly my children's book, Mariah's Maracas, where he's the illustrator on that book. For my shows, he creates the music for many of our productions. And that money that I get from those gigs or from those contracts, they come back into our household, paying for our food, utilities, or whatever. So some practical I wanted to end on some practical tips and resources. So, what I would recommend, and this little sheet will be in the message board. Identify your niche. What are you passionate about? What skills do you have? You start thinking about capital, leveraging free tools, free software and platforms like Canva, Zoom, Google Workspace, networking, so spreading the word with your through your friends, family, and social media to get your first clients. Upskilling, always being open to learn something new, learning new skills using free resources like YouTube, Coursera, Khan Academy. Bartering services, so trading your skills or services for something you need to get started. That is really how Homeschool Collective started, was through bartering. I teach your kids, you teach my kids, we're going to teach all the kids, and that's how homeschool collectives began. And so that ultimately can become a business. Starting small, so focusing on gaining customers and reinvesting your earnings to grow your business. Choose a business structure that fits your needs, your goals. Looking for grants, mentorship programs, and online tools to help you grow your business. I would also say, I started this in 2024. I started doing pitch contests to really just tighten up my my goals, my mission, to be able to even tighten up my elevator speech. And I'm not going into an elevator pitch in this workshop. That's something that you can look up. But pitch contests are things, and a lot of times they're advertised on places like LinkedIn. You join business groups you hear about where there are angel investors who are looking to offer startup monies to new businesses. But what you have to do is pitch your business in a way to compel them to want to fund you, very similar to Shark Tank. And so there are pitch contests that are on a smaller level than Shark Tank. They may not be offering you six figure, or even offering to invest in a way where they're going to get some residuals from your business. But a lot of these contests are just like, we'll give you 5,000, 10,000. Pitch to us that it's worth it. And I've been doing that lately. I haven't won. I haven't won, but I've gotten great feedback to really help me with streamlining my services. So that's also something that I would recommend when you're talking about finding resources to help you grow your business, and of course leveraging technology. Um, so I'm going to include in the message board ways that you could involve your children in your business, from elementary school aged to high school aged. I'm also going to include in the message board some of the vocabulary that I mentioned earlier. But I do want to just end with letting you know that businesses can align with homeschooling and offer non monetary benefits like travel, resources, and community impact. And, I'm saying this at the end because I didn't want to turn you off to the idea of like a business where the main point isn't money. What? But I will tell you that so I'm a performer. I'm the poet laureate of Prince George's County, Maryland. But before that, I was a gigging poet and singer. So making money while performing. And a lot of places that, especially when my daughter was younger, I would perform at places where it was a fee to enter or to attend or to register. And they weren't really offering a lot of money, but they were also offering free admission. So a lot of these opportunities became field trips for the family. So I would say there used to be this festival called the Green Fest. It would travel across the country and it would make a stop in DC at the convention center. Those tickets were ridiculous. Between $30 and $50. They were expensive. And so I got booked there like maybe a couple of times. And I think once I got a media pass because I was a freelance writer as well. And I never paid for tickets to the Green Fest, but I was either performing or covering the Green Festival through one of my business hats. And after I perform my 25-minute set, then we are in the Green Fest. Now this is a family trip, and I would get enough tickets for my daughter, my partner, um, his oldest daughter, and we'd be in there chilling and having a great time. And there are several stories that I have and examples where I had this business and this work that I'm doing, but it was a benefit that wasn't necessarily money. So you also have to think about that as well. As a homeschooler, that kind of opportunity is priceless. Also, know that Black women entrepreneurs are a driving force in the economy despite challenges. And with the right tools and the mindset, you can build a business that meets your needs and fits your family's lifestyle. And you may not be making six figures. You may not be on the cover of Forbes. And I say that with no shade because one of our speakers, Jade Weatherington, she wasn't on the cover of Forbes, but she definitely was interviewed because of her incredible work as an online instructor, but that may not be you, and you can still have a viable business and it's doing what it needs to do. Um, I can say that I never made six figures from any of my businesses individually, but I definitely have made income to keep our family afloat, and to do incredible work in the community. My company, Liberated Muse, we are now in, let me do my math real quick. Oh my God, this is the 17th year. This month, Liberated Muse is 17 years old. We started in 2008. So 17 years. I've had a performance arts company. Um, I continue to perform regularly. We'll be at the Kennedy Center with Liberated Muse at the end of February. Um, we're part of the Intersections Festival in March. Um, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying that you can sustain your businesses for as long as you want, and you can do this. I look forward to you all meeting me over in the message board. And if I'm not there, leaving some messages for me so I can respond to you. But I thank you so much for joining me for starting and building a business while homeschooling. I hope this was helpful. Bye.